Welcome to the ACICS webinar announcing, relating, and explaining the May 2015 Memorandum to the Field. Today's presenters are Dr. Albert C. Gray, President and CEO, Ms. Susan Greer, Vice President, Accreditation Operations, and Ms. Teron King, Senior Manager, Policy and Institutional Review. The agenda for today's webinar, we will begin with a welcome from Dr. Gray, followed by information on the 2015 ACICS Professional Development Conference. Then we will cover our one and only topic for this webinar, final changes to the accreditation criteria, and we will end with questions and comments.
Thank you, Teron, and let me echo Teron's welcome to today's AWARE webinar, which covers the May 2015 Memorandum to the Field, outcomes from the April 2015 Council meeting. I am Al Gray, I'm the President and CEO of ACICS. As always, we all appreciate your engagement in ACICS accreditation and quality assurance. Best wishes for a good webinar. Thank you. And a little commercial, we do have our annual conference and business meeting coming up very shortly. In fact, next week. There is a little bit of time left if you want to register, but not much. It promises to be an excellent conference, high attendance, and great speakers and good interaction between the members and professional attendees. So just want to remind you about that conference.
In order to view the Memorandum to the Field, please visit our website at www.acics.org. Click on Council Actions, followed by Memorandum to the Field, and then the link for May 2015. So we will begin with our final criteria revisions. And the areas that will be covered are the deferral workshop, debarment policy, due process as it relates to council actions, bylaws, and general education, specifically in the glossary of definitions. The deferral workshop, specifically section 2-3-200. In April, the Council approved as final revisions to accreditation deferral actions, specifically possible requirement of participation in a workshop and or consultation if an institution is deferred. Our next item is debarment policy. Section 2-3-1000. In April, the Council approved as final revisions to the debarment standard. The key components of this revision were the reasons in which an individual or entity could be debarred and persons subject to debarment. Now I'm going to turn the mic over to my colleague, Ms. Susan Greer, to discuss due process as it relates to council actions.
So this was also discussed in the April Council, and the change to this particular section of our criteria is strengthening some of the processes that our council have done over their history, but it does relate to us identifying prior to any council action council determining that there are areas that need improvement, often referred to as our deferral process. And so institutions will be required through council information to provide further clarification if the response initially sent is not clear and removes the area that needs the improvement. With respect to the student achievement outcomes through the Campus Accountability Report, this has a new table for your benefit. The standards have not changed, so there wasn't any revision to that. It is still 70% benchmark and 60% compliance, with the exception of those programs that were smaller or shorter in time period. And Ms. Teran can go over in further detail the outcomes and what we will require if you are below benchmark.
Thank you, Sue. The council voted to break down the due process for student achievement standards into 3 years, which I'm currently showing on the screen. Year 1 is a deferral status, and the council directed actions are implementation of an improvement plan and inclusion of that improvement plan into your campus effectiveness plan. For the second year in which a campus or a program might be below the council standard, there are 2 actions: continue improvement plan and include again into your CEP following evaluation, analysis, evidence of monitoring, and revision if needed, and also to prepare a draft teach-out plan for submission if, and I want to stress the if, continue below standard in year 3. So you would not submit that teach-out plan, you're simply drafting it in the event that you are not able to meet the standard in year 3. And then we'll go down to year 3, campus level withdrawal by suspension, and at program level would be termination of program. As far as the campus level is concerned, the council directed actions are appealable to the Review Board of Appeals. Program level is termination of a program, and you would need to submit a program termination plan for ACICS approval. And if you'll note at the top of, toward the top of the chart, where it says council directed action, there's an asterisk, and that is saying that it is understood that the council has the right to take an adverse action or show cause directive at its discretion if an institution is deemed significantly out of compliance with little chance of coming into compliance within a reasonable period of time. The next area of final revisions stems from the bylaws. In April, the council approved as final revisions to the bylaws, and this is specifically regarding a former commissioner's eligibility to complete a vacated term prior to the expiration of the required 3-year waiting period. And last but certainly not least, this was not an action that was taken in April of 2015, but a year ago, in April of 2014, the council approved its final revisions to the glossary definition of general education that will become effective July 1st of this year. And basically the key components of that are that your general education coursework must include the following general disciplines, and that's humanities, mathematics and sciences, and the social sciences. So we have a record time of completing our slides for our webinar, but that does give us a little more time to answer any questions that you all might have. So we're going to get our questions filtered here and begin answering. And so year one starts with the 2016 car. So year two would apply to the 2017 car. No, year one starts with the 2014 car. And you all will be receiving student achievement review information based off of your 2014 car reported information within the next couple of weeks. When will information about requesting mitigating circumstances be issued? There are no longer any mitigating circumstances. We're not utilizing that tool going forward. Currently, we verify placement by collecting a signed employment verification document from an employer. We collect a physical document with an original signature. Typically, it is mailed to and from the employer. Would it be a permissible practice to obtain employment verifications through an electronic medium such as email or an online form completed and electronically submitted by an employer? Susan, did you want to answer that one?
Yes, this is Susan. So in answer to that question with respect to your verification on employment, yes, emails have been accepted by visit teams. It is the school's responsibility to take that judgment as to what you would consider to be verifiable documentation and be able to speak to it if challenged by any visit team. So ACICS doesn't have strict criteria around what verification is required, but we do expect you to be able to justify it. The next question I see is when will be effective the 3 years? So as Tehran mentioned, the 2014-15 CAR, which you submitted in November of 2014, that is considered year one. The year that you are collecting data for right now, which is the 2015-2016 CAR, that will be considered year two. Year three then would be the year after that. The next question is, if a program is below the council standard on the 2014 CAR, is that considered year one, or would year one be considered the 2015 CAR if the same program? No, we're considering year one. You have already submitted with your 2014-15 CAR. That is year one. The next question, is the standard compliance level, or is the due process referring to both compliance and benchmark? The due process is referring to the compliance standard. We have one standard, and that standard is 60%. Placement and retention, campus and program level. We do have a benchmark, and there are requirements when you trigger benchmark, and that requirement is the same whether it's program or campus level. And the requirement, if you are below our benchmark, is to include in your CEP an improvement plan. So again, either program or campus level, an improvement plan is our requirement if you trigger below the benchmark. Once you get into the compliance, then the due process and the year one, year two, and year three is triggered. The next question is, what changed in the glossary definitions of general education? And I'll let Ms. Tehran speak to that.
Actually, the coursework did not change. However, the verbiage used to indicate including, and it changed from including to must include because there was some confusion in interpretation of whether it could be one or all. So that was all that was changed for the general education. So it was to give institutions enough time to make any changes that they needed to make for their curriculum by July 1st of this year. We will receive, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I just misspoke. A big oops. Year one, you've already submitted. It was your 2013-2014 CAR. That was year one. So please retract any audio that you have of this webinar where I said that year one was 14-15. Year one you have already submitted. It was started in July 1st, 2013, went through June 30th, 2014, and you submitted it in November 2014. Those communications and that letter from council you will be receiving very soon. Year two is the one that you're currently in, which is what we indicate as the 2014-2015 CAR. And then year three will be the 2015 ending in 2016. My mistake, and I apologize for any confusion that may have caused. I'll read the next question since I have the mic. Is the 3-year compliance plan for programs under benchmark also or just under compliance? The 3-year due process that we have implemented is once you have gone below council standard, and that is the 60%. Benchmark, we expect you to do an improvement plan, but as long as you remain above council standard, it will not trigger the 3-year requirement. The next question is, do the general education requirements apply to occupational associate degrees? And Taran has been speaking on the general education, so I'll throw that back to her.
Thank you, Sue. Yes, general education requirements apply to occupational associate degree. There was a question of whether this webinar is being recorded, and it is, and we will be working to have this posted on our website at some point after the conclusion of the webinar, as well as the slide deck. The next question is, has there been any final determination on general education courses as they apply to occupational associate's degrees, since applied general education courses can be used? Can the OAD program have a combo of applied and regular general education courses, or do OAD programs have to have a representation from the 3 categories in the glossary?
Yes, this is Susan, and that is a good question. Because of the council's determination that all 3 of the general education categories must be included in an occupational associate's degree program, even your applied gen eds must come from one of those 3 categories, or must include those 3 categories. So you're correct, and OAD has the ability of using both applied gen eds and general gen eds. The requirement is that your combination of general educations must be represented in all 3 of the areas.
There's a question regarding when will the results come in each year after year 1. The results, of course, are based on your reported data from your CAR. We know that this year we typically we send out any issues regarding meeting or not meeting standards specifically, usually in January or February of every year. However, with the new CAR system, to afford the membership an opportunity to correct any errors that we found in the back end of data that they submitted, we gave an extension on fixing those things. So the council reviewed that information in April. Now going forward, they will be reviewing it in December of every year. So we would be working to get the information of those programs or campuses below the council standard out in January or February of every year going forward. The next question is, what about a small program? We have programs with 11 students. If there are 3 people that did not get placed, we only have 63% placement, which is below the 70% benchmark. Okay, for the last couple of years, the council did give a, I don't want to call it a waiver, for programs for retention with less than 10 enrollments and for placement with less than 10 completers and graduates. And the council voted this year that beginning with the 2015 CAR data, that waiver will no longer apply. So for this particular, for the 2014 CAR information, when you receive your student achievement review letters, if you're below, those programs that have less than 10, if you were below the council standard, will not show on your report, on your letter, excuse me, not your report, your letter. But going forward for the 2015 CAR, if you have programs with less than 10 students enrolled for retention, less than 10 students that are completers or graduates for placement, you will, those programs will still show as being below council standard, and you will have to follow the council directed actions for those programs. The next question is, will the year 1 deferral status be reported on our website? No. This next question I think I've already answered. It's asking for the 2014-2015 CAR year, which we're currently working within. So this current year is year 1, which we will hear about. No, the 2014 to 2015 CAR reporting year will be year 2. The 2013 to 2014 CAR reporting data is year 1. If a program falls below compliance in a given year, then surpasses the following year, please confirm the due process starts over, and in the event of the 3rd year was again under compliance mark, that will be considered year 1 for due process purposes. Yes, that is correct. If you're below 1 year and you're above the next year, you start over again with year 1 when you drop below again. But we hope no one drops below. Could you give an example of the difference of what was permissible in the old general education definition that is no longer and must be changed? As I stated earlier, it was basically the interpretation of what the difference between including and must include. That was the only language that actually changed in the general education definition. General education does not apply to academic associate's degrees. No, I'm sorry. This is a question that I'm reading. I'm not saying that. This is a question from one of the members. I should say, does general education apply to academic associate's degree? Yes. What about students earning a diploma? Will they be required to enroll and take general education courses? No. Previously, council standard action and time frame took into account the length of a program. Is this still being considered, or are all programs strictly on the 3-year plan? You're correct. Yes, previously that is how the council looked at those programs and campuses below, but beginning with the 2013-2014 CAR data, everyone has a year to come into compliance. Remember, year 1 is a deferral status. Year 2 is compliance warning. So once you hit compliance warning, you have a year, and only a year, doesn't matter what length of a program that you have, to come into compliance with council's, to meet council standard. And I would ask, just as you type your questions, to try to be as specific as possible, because there's some questions I'm having difficulty figuring out what is being referred to. Someone's asking for me to repeat exemption on placement and retention waivers being removed. As you all remember, and I'll say this again because this is important, for the last couple of years, the council has given an exemption or waiver to those programs that have less than 10 students enrolled for retention and less than 10 graduates and completers for placement. For this year, and when I say this year, I mean the 2013 to 2014 CAR, that still applies. However, beginning with the 2014 to 15 CAR year, that's why I like to use this one number, but the 2014 to 15 CAR year, that exemption and waiver will not be in place. So if you have a program that retention is 58%, but you only have 4 students, that program will show up on your student achievement review letter, and you will be required to come into compliance with the council standard, or perhaps lose your, or it may end in termination of your program if you're not able to do that. Will the letters we received this year for the 2014 CAR be for programs below 60%? Yes, it will be for programs and campus level retention and placement, and program retention, placement, and licensure where it applies will all be denoted on your letter if you're found to be below the council standard. Someone's asking, can you give an example of on the improvement plan? I'm not, are you asking, is there a template for the improvement plan? If you could type the person that asked that question, because I'm not sure. And the templates for improvement plans are on our website. Okay. Well, again, if there are more questions, and as stated earlier in the WARE webinar, you will be receiving your student achievement review letters within the next 2 weeks. And if you have questions, you can feel free to send them my way, or any of our way, we'll be more than happy to assist you in answering any questions that you have. To that individual asking for the template, I don't want to misspeak right now, and I can't get to the website specifically, but I will, if you can send me an email, I will send you the template, but I don't want to send you to the wrong place on the website. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and have a great Memorial Day weekend.